Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a Screenwriter's Take. Yes, I finally saw something worth reviewing and wanted to talk to you about it. I finally saw Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. It is currently running on Amazon, and you can rent it for $1.99 or buy it for $5.99 on Amazon. Now, I went over the trailer, which was very kick-ass. And the trailer had subtitles, but the version on Amazon was dubbed. Here you can see a big zombie mass. It's really cool. So let me first evaluate the movie and talk about what I think sort of happening with regard to the comparison of, say, South Korean cinema with American cinema right now. I would say, and I'm going to try not to give away any of the plot, but it is a zombie movie, so you kind of know the deal. But the basic plot is it's 4 years after the events of Train to Busan. It starts with that time period and characters trying to escape the zombies out of South Korea. And that's intercut with like an American talk show talking about the zombie hordes and how they are basically trapped in South Korea. It broke out in South Korea. The North Koreans were able, because of their situation, to keep all the zombies on the peninsula, and the rest of the world's kind of, kept the South Korean peninsula quarantined. You know, whoever got out, everybody else is quarantined, right? So then it cuts to 4 years later. Now, the guys who escaped, or a few of them, they have terrible psychological scars for reasons that happen early in the movie. I don't want to give it away. But the setup is the South Koreans were trying to get to Japan, and they get diverted to Hong Kong, where they live, but they kind of live in squalor because they kind of are like people without a nation, so they're like refugees. So the main characters they're just broken and beaten, and they have no lives there. They can't get out, and a group of gangsters approach them, and there's all this money left on the peninsula, of course. So the deal is they sent guys in before to get some money, and they loaded it up on a truck, $20 million, and if they go in and get it, the gangsters will split the money with them. And so they set up a thing where they got 3 days, they got a satellite phone, they have all the ammo and stuff they need, and they send them in to go get the truck, and they know exactly what truck they are. Well, of course, there's complications. They get in there, and there are survivors from the zombie hordes. And the great thing about the movie is that the zombies have very specific rules. So since it's 4 years later, the zombies have gone mostly blind. So at night, they're actually not as much of a threat because they can't see. So unless you set off a flare or an explosion and noise bothers them, so unless you can get around the city at night, which is interesting. But in the daytime, you kind of got to watch out because they can see better. So they actually move around at night. And the decimation in the movie is amazing. I mean, it's just block after block after block of like total post-apocalyptic zombie world. And it's great. The zombies are the running kind of zombies, which is not my preference. But in this case, since they have these rules, which they don't normally have with a lot of running zombie movies, they kind of ignore the rules for the sake of some extra, shock value, I guess you would say. But in this movie, it really works for me. I do prefer the shambling zombies, but man, the action in this movie, there's so much of it, of people driving through the zombies, fighting in the zombies, fighting the zombies, fighting while driving and driving through the zombies. I mean, it is a non-stop tour de force. Now, the only thing that slows it down is the drama. But the drama is, for the most part, I don't want to say realistic, but it's there. that you feel like you need to resolve it. You know, I think that was the from the sound of it. I didn't see Army of the Dead, but I did watch Critical Drinker's evaluation of Army of the Dead, and it was pretty much what I expected. In that, Zack Snyder knows how to make a fantastic looking movie, like Michael Bay or a lot of guys. But when it comes to the screenplay, I think in the case of The Watchmen, Zack Snyder had great source material. And man, did he come close to making that comic book movie work. He came as close as anyone. He missed it by literally one scene. If he had included that scene, the movie would be almost perfect. Aside from all the pirate ship nonsense, which wasn't really, in my view, germane to a movie version of The Watchmen. And the changes too. I would have preferred the original, but he was close. I got to hand it to him. But the movie looked fantastic. And as much as Sucker Punch, again, I haven't seen it, but I've seen enough of it to know I'm not going to waste 90 minutes of my life. But it looks fantastic. I mean, the clips, the visuals are just stunning. So I can't argue with the guy's skill in terms of making visuals, but he just doesn't seem to know what a good script is. Whereas this, is the script a stunner? No, I wouldn't say the script is on par with the visuals, but it's decent. It's okay. It has enough drama in it. Now, maybe that's the South Korean culture. There's a little more taste for drama in the South Korean, country and their entertainment. There's a real yearning for drama in their entertainment. And some of it goes on too long. I'll tell you right now, like, the pacing is odd at places because literally the movie will stop to resolve some of the drama when you're kind of like, wait a minute. Shouldn't you, kind of be moving things along? Especially at the end, there's a few moments where it's like, oh, you're killing me. Just get to the point. But maybe that's, an American looking at a South Korean movie. Still, though, you need that drama. You need real connections to the various characters in the movie. So when somebody dies, you're like, oh man, that guy died? Oh no, I didn't want him to die. Oh, I can't believe he's dead. Whereas my impression, again, through Critical Drinker, is you almost don't care about the people dying in Army of the Dead. There's too many of them, and they're not established well enough. And that's a problem with a lot of zombie movies. You have to establish the characters at least well enough, so when they die, you feel bad for them in a zombie movie, at the very least, and you want a little character to... The details help. I reviewed Zombievers, which I thought was going to be a piece of crap, but, man, character-wise, it was great. They really went to town on making sure every character had a thing going on, had some traits, was unique. Same thing with Peninsula here. Each character... Now, some of it's a little too melodramatic, but there's no arguing that it's needed in a movie like this. So, yeah, here's the zombie hordes here. And there's personal connections between the characters. Again, I don't want to... It's hard to talk about it without giving too much away. It's totally worth seeing. Totally worth seeing. Again, you might feel like during the drama moments, oh man, come on. But, if you say to yourself, well, maybe these drama moments happen faster, but the characters are just perceiving it as longer than they are, and you could kind of maybe forgive it. Because the action in it, top notch. And it's that drama that helps make the action worth watching, because you care about the characters. You care about what happens to them, and it doesn't feel like a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't feel like a video game. You're invested in these characters. And so when it comes to Peninsula, I'm not going to say it's the greatest in terms of drama. I think Train to Busan was superior in that integration. There was a good balance there between the zombies, the horror, and the drama. In this, the action kind of overshadows everything. The drama's okay, but because of that weird pacing, it's off a little bit. I have to be honest there, but totally worth seeing. Totally worth seeing if you like zombie movies. Oh my god, the kick-ass action in this of cars driving through zombies and just you know, they really set up the situation well. So it makes sense that there are survivors. It makes sense the zombies are still there. Everything makes sense in this movie. And again, you know, with a couple, you know, if you're really gonna nitpick, yeah, you could punch some holes in it. I'll say, but I think it holds up pretty well. I think it holds up pretty well if you like these kinds of movies. If you like zombie movies and you like an action-based zombie movie, you know, it's smarter than, I would say, The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead, the characters seem to change their strategy. Now, Walking Dead had its issues with showrunners, and you know, it ran much longer, so whatever. But you know, in this, at least there's some characters, and the sensibilities are a little different. I'll tell you one thing I noticed, which what I thought was interesting. In Hong Kong, the head gangster's a white guy who does speak English, right? I don't think his voice was dubbed, which was weird because I was thinking to myself, how is this guy the head of the gang in Hong Kong? But I guess it's possible because Hong Kong was a protectorate of the Brits, and so maybe. So it was just weird. He just seemed to stick out in the movie. But the setup with the gangsters and the money makes a hell of a lot more sense than Army of the Dead. Because Army of the Dead is like, well, the zombie infection hits Las Vegas, but somehow they managed to get a wall around the place to keep the zombies in. It doesn't even make any sense to me that they could even do that in time, right? Because you're talking like millions of zombies trapped in Las Vegas, and then the characters have time to go in there and rob the place before they're going to nuke it. Like, why would they wait to nuke Las Vegas and destroy all the zombies? It doesn't make any sense. Whereas in Peninsula, it makes sense, right? They quarantine the Peninsula. The only place the zombies could walk would be North Korea, and the North Koreans have already had the DMZ, right? And even though the DMZ is partially dismantled, you know, the North Koreans have tons and tons of weapons. So, like, the zombies wouldn't stand a chance going north. So, it's one of the few movies where the isolation of the, you know, other than if you did it, say, if you set it in England, right? If you set it in England, and you could say the British Isles are now zombie country, and that would make sense too, right? Because it's an island. Or you could do it to Ireland or Puerto Rico or Cuba or whatever. Dawn of the Dead, another good zombie movie. But the action in this is just unbelievable. You know, and the thing about the South Koreans too, they use the visuals in service of the story, right? And again, even though the drama's not quite on the mark, at least from my perception, at least it's there. It's integrated decently. Whereas in a movie like Army of the Dead, it's so glaringly obvious who's going to survive that movie. Just, I can see from the trailer, you know? And the other problem with that too is the celebrities kind of overshadow everything. And I think it's going away. I think people are generally sick of celebrities in America, and hopefully they are going to be subjugated now to the story, because Dave Bautista is great. I mean, I like him as an actor, and he's been great in a few different things. But it's almost like he overshadows his presence overshadows what should be a good plot or a good script. And it should be the other way around. Like, it should have a solid enough story that you go, oh, wow, that sounds like a cool idea. Oh, yeah, and Dave Bautista's in it. Like, that's the balance. The Koreans have that balance in their movies, right? I'm not feeling like the star power of the various actors are overwhelming me. You know, there was so much action in it. And characters just show up and start talking. Whereas I know that in American movies, the moment somebody talks, they're paid a lot more money. So there's sort of a profit incentive not to throw in like just a guy who, like, say you have a character who's a valet. The moment he says one word, he's paid a different rate. Like he would be called like I want to say like a principal extra, right? Maybe it's a higher up than that. But like the moment you get speaking roles, it's like you got to be in the union, you got to get a higher pay rate. So if you have a scene where a valet just takes the car and says thank you sir and then drives the car away, you cut that line, you're saving money. Whereas I get the sense in a lot of other cultures, and probably in South Korea, that's not necessarily the case. Or that the stars aren't so big that they're sucking up all the budget for that. You know what I mean? So, and I hate to get into the weeds here on the nuts and bolts, but there's not much else to say about this movie itself because it's just good and you should watch it. I mean, it's just, there's so many crazy scenes. Like, this is an arena scene where they spray paint numbers on guys and then set the zombies loose for 2 minutes on them and then they bet on who survives. I mean, it was cool. Now, I've seen scenes like this in a movie and they're just horrible. They're just like, oh man, we're doing this. It's just pathetic and sadistic for no reason. But this actually kind of worked for me, About the only other time I could think of them doing something similar is when I think Snake Plissken has to play basketball in, what is it? Is that Escape from L.A.? I think that's in the Escape from L.A. movie, which isn't great, but that particular scene seems to be okay. But, so yeah, as I've been saying, the South Koreans, man, they are just nailing it with movies. I mean, look at this scene. This is like a big horde of zombies. I don't know if they're chained together or what. They just come running out. Ugh. It's scary, too. There's a bunch of scary scenes along with the action. So it's really a horror action movie, I would classify it. I like the characters. Other than the last... I could... man, if you could just edit about 10 minutes off this movie, man, it would just be nonstop. I would just cut back on some of those dramatic moments a little bit and just... But, seeing the characters kind of make those turns is important. And I think, again, from what I understand from the evaluation, that wasn't necessarily present in a movie like Army of the Dead, and a lot of other zombie movies too. It's just, let's go. Let's go shoot some zombies. And when you have that sort of weight to the characters, you're kind of on the edge of your seat because you're like, oh man, are these characters going to die? It's a zombie movie, so people are going to die. And there's like one or two characters in this movie are going to die, but I think it's well done. Anyhow, that's my evaluation. It's called Peninsula, but it's called Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. So I guess they didn't want to call it Train to Busan 2 because there's no train in the movie. But they wanted everybody to know this was the sequel. So Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. It's on Amazon. I think it's on Google too, but I think Amazon's the cheapest at $1.99. That's it for me and Joan tonight. Sorry for the late video. Check us out on Bitchute and Rumble, and we'll see you tomorrow.